Welcome back, my brilliant entrepreneurs. Today we're going to be talking about a really important topic for any business, and that is employee or worker classification. Now, not paying attention to worker classification can land you in some hot water. So today I want to give you some important details on how to think about worker classification and who you should be calling an employee versus an independent contractor. Let's get to it. All right. So before we get into the details of what is the difference legally between an independent contractor and employee, let's think about it globally. So when we think about independent contractors versus employees are generally those people who you have under you, working for you, oftentimes full-time, maybe part-time. They're people that you have control over. Versus independent contractors are those people that you maybe hire as consultants or outside of your organization to come in and help you with maybe specific projects. So when you think about the two, you want to make sure that you are not confusing calling an employee an independent contractor and vice versa, because the penalties or ramifications of that could be significant. And today we're going to talk about what are the tests you want to look at, how do you want to think about when and how to classify an employee versus an independent contractor. So there are a variety of tests you want to look at when thinking about independent employees versus contractors. The first test is the federal test. There's a federal law that governs how you want to classify people. And this is important because there are federal penalties and there are state penalties for misclassification. You want to make sure you get it right at both levels. And when it comes to federal law, they look at what is the extent of the control you have over this person. Are you telling them when to work, where to work, how to work? These are critical elements you want to weigh when deciding whether you want to call someone an independent contractor or employee. On the state level, for example, in California, we have the ABC test. The ABC test looks at three distinct factors when determining whether someone is considered an independent contractor versus employee. So let's break it down. Factor A says that the employee must be free from control of the employer to be considered an independent contractor. Factor B is the individual must perform work that is outside the course of the usual business of the employer. So if I have an accounting company and I'm hiring an accountant, generally I need to call them an employee. But let's say I'm hiring someone to come in and clean or water my plants. Now, they could be contractors most likely because they are not in the usual course of business for the company. Now, that is just one factor though. You have to satisfy all three factors. And lastly, factor C says that the individual must be engaged in an independent trade, business, or work. So that means that they must be doing something for other people as well, ideally. So if they have their own LLC, if they have their own company, this will actually lean in your favor, meaning that they are their own entity and you're just hiring that entity to perform some service for you, but they have the opportunity to do work for other people as well. So one thing I often tell people, this is a really important fact, is that if you want to make sure that someone's an independent contractor, or if you want to hire someone as an independent contractor, it is in your favor to have that person be a separate entity. Now, this tip will not work in every situation, but it is a good way to tip the scales in the favor of calling someone an independent contractor when you're hiring their entity versus the individual themselves. Now, again, this is not legal advice. This is a tip that you can consider and also discuss with your own legal representative, but I found that it does help in protecting you when it comes to questions about worker classification. So now let's jump into the pros and cons of hiring an independent contractor versus employee. When looking to start a business, independent contractors are attractive because all you have to do is pay them one fixed fee and they deal with their taxes. You don't have to worry about workers' compensation insurance. You don't have to worry about benefits. You don't have to worry about health insurance. All that is not really relevant when you're hiring an independent contractor. Now, when you hire an employee, on the other hand, all of a sudden you have many more obligations to that person. You have to comply with many more employment laws. And in California, we have a lot of them. It's almost impossible to comply with every one unless you're going to be working very closely with an employment lawyer. So these are important details to consider. Yes, it is sometimes attractive for many employers to hire independent contractors, but it's not as easy as that. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean it's legal to do it. So this is why you really want to consider the factors that we discussed above. How much control are you exerting over this person? And the presumption in California is that everyone is an employee unless they satisfy the test to be considered an independent contractor. That is the ABC test. There may be other unique elements you have to consider depending on the type of work they're doing. But fundamentally, everyone is an employee unless they can pass this higher threshold, which is the ABC test or some federal test that says that you are not exerting significant amount of control over this person. So now the question is, why would you even want to hire an employee if you can really just make things really simple for yourself by hiring an independent contractor? Well, there's a lot of advantages actually to hiring employees. One is you provide job security for these people. You also have more latitude in what you tell them to do and when you tell them to work. With employees, you can hire someone as a salaried employee that is not eligible for overtime if they are paid a certain amount of money, generally double the minimum wage, make someone an exempt employee as long as they are performing certain types of duties. And if they do meet this test, now you can pay them a salary and actually have them work when you need them. And maybe that's more hours on some days, less hours on the others, but you don't have to worry about tracking those hours, meal and rest breaks, paying them overtime or double overtime if they work a certain amount of hours. You have more flexibility in when and where they work and how much you can expect from them as employees. On the other hand, contractors may not have that flexibility, especially if your contract is very strict. If they feel maybe they were misclassified, now you're in a very precarious position because they could bring a misclassification claim, and now we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in potential penalties and fines if you ended up misclassifying that person. So I know this is a complicated area, but to help you navigate this maze of how to determine whether someone's an employee versus an independent contractor, there's three important things you want to keep in mind. One is this ABC test in California, and also looking at the federal test. And the question is really, how much control are you exerting over this person? If you are exerting a significant amount of control and telling them where to work, when to work, how to work, oftentimes that's going to mean that they're going to be employees and not independent contractors. Next, make sure you document the relationship. It's always important to have a contract in place, whether it's an independent contractor, consulting a contract, saying that they're independent contractors, or employee offer letter. You want to make sure you are clear on the terms of the engagement with this person. A contract will not get you out of misclassification. It will help you in certain ways if they agree that they are independent contractors, but it will not solve the issue. Even if you tell them in writing that they're independent contractors and they agree to that, the courts will look at, okay, what is this person actually doing? What kind of work are they doing? How much are you exerting over them? How much power are you exerting over them? So those are things you want to consider when you are hiring someone. Make sure whatever that agreement is, it's in writing. And lastly, if you do end up calling someone an independent contractor, make sure you are not exerting undue influence over them. Make sure they have autonomy. Make sure that you are telling them, okay, here's what I want, but how you do it and when you do it is kind of up to you. I just need it delivered by this date. Make sure the terms of that engagement are clear and that you really are just asking them for a deliverable and not controlling when and how they work. So wrapping up with this video, remember, it's really important how you classify the people working for you. Are they employees? Are they independent contractors? Are you complying with the laws that you need to be considering when you classify these individuals? There are a number of employment laws out there, and there are a number of independent contractor laws out there. Whatever you decide, whatever you think makes sense based on the tests that we provided today, make sure that you consult an attorney. Make sure you guys are making the right decisions and going through this with a good amount of caution, because a misclassification claim can cost you tens of thousands of dollars, not just in penalties, but in time, effort, energy, and it's not good for your company. It's not a good look. So we want to make sure that you're doing this right from the start. And I can't forget to remind you that this is just educational advice. This is not legal advice. I'm not your lawyer. I'd be happy to help you if you, in fact, do need a lawyer. Feel free to reach out. But again, this is just for educational purposes to help you guys succeed as entrepreneurs and business owners. I want to make sure that everyone's making the right decisions and can stay out of litigation, stay out of courts, because it's just going to slow you down and cost you money and potentially tank your business. So I hope you guys take this information, apply it, use it, talk to your lawyers about it, and make sure that you're applying it the right way. But it can be hugely helpful and save you a lot of time, energy, and money if you actually pick up a few points from the video today. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, subscribe, follow. All the likes are super helpful, and also comment if you have any questions or concerns. I love to engage in this debate about how we should be classifying people, how we can be better employers, how we can be better entrepreneurs. And remember, it's about building a team. Think about this in a wider context, that you want to build the best team possible. You want to have people who are with you through thick and thin. And how are you going to do that? You want to treat them well. You want to make people feel respected, and these laws are here to make sure that that happens. It's up to you to then apply the laws, do it in a way that makes sense for you, and ideally a compassionate and considerate way, and help grow your business, because the workers, the people that work for you are the backbone of your business, and you'll only be successful if you can have a great team around you that can help you reach the next height. Thank you again. My name is Pankaj Raval, founder of Carbon Law Group.